when you are authentic, and I think, you can determine how that looks for you. We're not asking you to cry on a video or,
I can though.
mental,
Not on purpose. Yeah.
have a mental breakdown,
Yeah.
And I think realizing that we're all human, and especially as you're building a business, we all know how challenging it is. So many of us have been there, and I feel like so many people can see through the lies and the fake and, the inauthenticity, and they'd rather work with someone they connect with who's a human. And I always say, like, people follow people, they don't follow, brands.
Hello and welcome. My name's Kerry Sheffield, photographer and CEO of my own successful business. I'm also the host of She Networks, a great believer in lifting up women and loyal supporter to those that are around me. We are all surrounded by incredible women who are breaking the molds in this thing called life. Behind every successful online persona is a real person facing struggles, failures, and living real life stories that don't always have happy endings. We will have an honest conversation, dispel this myth of perfection, and find out what they consider a success, how they achieved it, and learn what they are still reaching for. You are not alone. Join the conversation. I'm very excited to have Katie Lopez with us today, founder and CEO of Clo Marketing, a full-service marketing agency based in Orlando. I'm sure she's got clients far and wide, and we'll discuss who they are. I do suggest you get a pen and paper today, because I'm going to be asking Katie questions that are actually going to help you with your business and with what I consider to be the hardest part of being an entrepreneur and having a small business, and that is social media marketing and just being seen and getting your business out there. Welcome, Katie. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
What did I miss? Tell me something about you that I may have missed in your introduction.
So I feel like you started out perfectly, but essentially I help businesses share their story on social media, and I've been doing it since 2013. So as you said, it is a very difficult element of business owners to handle, especially those that have small businesses where it's themselves or themselves and a couple of people, and now you're expected to be a marketing expert, where you are originally you are an expert in your field, but now you're expected to be an expert on social media.
Yes.
So I love helping people with businesses of all sizes. I work with women-owned small businesses, agencies, as well as global corporations. And really a lot of them have the same problems and the same issues that they face. And I really love being able to help those people share their story on social and reach their business goals and really make a difference and make an impact on their social media for their business, for their livelihoods, and really just feeling confident with what they're sharing.
So how did you get into this? How did you become self-employed? The founder of Clo Marketing.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, so like I said, I'd been in social since I was in college, and that was really when Facebook was the primary channel. So I helped small businesses around Windermere, Florida with their Facebook presence. So from then on, I had a long journey in social media where I was working at global corporations, but I always help small businesses on the side. So I was working for a Fortune 100 company out in DC, and I was leading the global brand channels for Marriott Hotels and Sheraton Hotels, which is Marriott International's flagship brands. And when 2020 came, I was like, you know what, now is the time to take a leap. And my parents are entrepreneurs, and I feel like I'd always had it in my blood. And I was like, this is the opportunity. And so I started in October of 2020. I started Clo Marketing from my apartment. I was living in LA at the time at a job that...
You've been a real globetrotter that.
Yes. Yeah, so I was very uninspired at the job that I was at. I was leading social in the beauty industry, and I just wanted to start out on my own. So yeah, that was October of 2020. And again, I really just wanted to help businesses share their voice and really make an impact on social. And I feel like the pandemic was a really unique opportunity for me because it really brought to light the importance of digital marketing and social media, where I feel like before that, people didn't really take it seriously. I was always the go-to for my friends of like, oh, what should, my caption be? Or what should this, how do I make a reel? And then I feel like I was finally able to make it into a business and really kicked off in late 2020.
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting, and I want us to break down a little bit the different social media avenues.
Yes.
I still feel actually, especially of my generation, I mean, Facebook was born and I was already established in my business. So what year were we looking at? When, can you remember when?
Probably like Facebook, probably 2011, 2012.
Right, yeah. So, and I wasn't an early adopter. I am now. I'm straight on the trend. My thread count was really low, actually. I had a really early number. I was in the hundreds of thousands, not the millions.
Okay.
But not that I've done much with it. But I still think now people underestimate the power of it.
Yep.
I'm amazed by how overwhelmed people are by it. I think that they're overwhelmed. They don't get started, and that's an interesting thing for me. But so I'm not overwhelmed by what you need to do or how to make it work. I'm overwhelmed by how much I should be doing, and also the constant change. How do you, as a professional in the industry, stay up to date and on top of the trends? And I mean, is the algorithm a real thing? Right. Is it something we should be paying attention to, or should we just be focusing inwards on our message and who we're talking to and how we're presenting to them?
Yeah, so it's definitely a mix of all of those things, and I totally hear you. And I feel like the number one thing I hear from any marketing or business professional is how overwhelmed they are. And when it comes to staying up to date, I have a few email newsletters that I really like. So Later Media has a really great one. And a couple other, let me see the names. I'll have to follow up with some of the names of the one. Social Media Examiner is a one that I really like. And it's really easy just to skim through and read it in a very digestible way. When it comes to the algorithm, so I feel like there's always algorithm changes and it's so much to keep up with. And I follow so many social media professionals on all of my channels. And I feel like really the message is to be authentic and to be who you are and speak as a human, and show, your feelings and what you're going through and not the picture.
Okay, well, I'm winning then, right? Yeah.
So I feel like before the pandemic, it was very, Instagram was this perfect place that everyone felt jealous of.
Your perfect grid, yes.
Yes, you had your grid curated, you had your filter that you used, and that really, I think too, Gen Z was a lot of the reason why that shifted. And it really became more of a space to be authentic, to share your voice, to share, things that you're passionate about. And maybe that's not something that, your neighbor would be passionate about, but it's who you are. So I feel like when people share with me that they're overwhelmed, I always try to start with like, well, who are you? What makes you unique? And like, what are the services that you provide? Like, you need to consistently be sharing that type of information because you are so ingrained with who you are and what you do, and you think like, oh, everyone knows that I do this, but not everyone does. Not everyone knows your content and yourself like you do. And you have to think too, when you're sharing on social media, not everyone is seeing your content, probably less than 20% of your followers. So just, you're never repeating yourself too much. And what I do that keeps it really easy for me and what I recommend to my clients is, every day of the week, have something that correlates. So on Monday, share something about your services and who you help. On Tuesday, share a behind the scenes look of what your day looks like. On Wednesday, what's your favorite coffee order? Like, switch it up. And really having, every Monday, knowing that you have to do that, it becomes a little less overwhelming.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think that I'm not saying that I follow that pattern, but I'm not intimidated by socials, so I don't mind doing whatever I do. But consistency is absolutely key. But I do say to clients, just write down a schedule.
Yes.
Take 3 days a week if you don't want to do 5 or 6 days a week, and then just choose a thing. I actually focus in a lot on I like audio. So if I hear something, I'll just save that, and then later on I'll go find. I mean, for what I do, obviously as a visual artist, I have a lot of material to work with, but predominantly a stills photographer, but we video pretty much every shoot that we do. and it's not professionally filmed. It's just, my assistant shooting, although she's getting really good, Stephanie, shout out to you. And sometimes it's just 5 or 6 seconds, but the audio just fits. And I like to be a little bit cheeky with my, so there might be some cuss words or whatever. I think I'm trying to be authentic. I'm trying to be me. If it resonates with me, then I'll use it. I don't want to be antagonistic, so I don't moan at my client through my audio. I might make a joke about them, but there's a lot, especially as photographers, I see a lot of people complaining, and I avoid that. Let's talk about the complaining thing, because one thing I have noticed that people do, we can spend money on Facebook and Instagram. I know we can create ads and everything. And I want to move on to the other platforms too. I don't understand people complaining about them. They're basically free. Although they keep changing. Like, I mean, I spent an insubordinate amount of time organizing my online store on Instagram. Eventually, after 5 years, I meant to do it. I did it. And then I didn't pay attention to the news about it. And then the store disappeared, because if you weren't using their checkout, then they just killed all the stores. I'm like, do you know how long that took me? And I'm thinking, well, why has it disappeared? And I went looking for it. But no, I don't complain about it because I'm not paying for it. I do wish, I really wish that they had a better way of protecting you.
Yes.
Because I got hacked by maybe a client, actually. It felt like it was, and they said it was them. It was just a weird person, a male actually. But it took me such a long time to get it back, and there was no real formula. So that's my only real complaint. What is your take on the fact that people are always moaning, oh, you've changed this, you've changed that? Because they keep, Instagram especially is always constantly changing. Yeah.
I think that I think the updates, I feel like, staying on top of if there, is a new channel or something that's really dramatic. But I feel like a lot of the time the updates are so small where it's like, oh, do long form video, or like, oh, you can't repeat your content anymore. But I feel like really just posting what feels authentic and genuine to you and continuing to be consistent in a way that works for you, like that's what's most important. And yeah, exactly like you said, at the end of the day, it's a free platform that you can market yourself, your goods, your services. They've always said that for Facebook, it really is pay to play. So if you want to get your reach out to more people, and that is something that I recommend, especially my smaller, of the main goal is for increased following, more engagement. And with that, I do always, just boost your post for $20-$30 and see how it does, like test it out.
It's interesting because on Facebook, I have to say, I have boosted in the past. When I got hacked, I lost all of my store. They shut, and so I've created a new a business account so I can spend money again if I want to. But even when I did boost and did pay, my Facebook business page never took off. So I have my She All I Am Is Me group, and as long as I'm the one pushing in there, and I have tried to create ambassadors and things, but no one does it like you do, right? Danielle's a great ambassador for me. She's the first in there to post and react. But so we have like over 2,000 people in there, 2,500 people, and the group does well. My personal page, which I really don't do anything on anymore, for my own reasons. And then I have Kerry Sheffield Photography. I actually have She Networks, and every business I've got, I'm a good person to go in and get it started. And I know you have to be consistent, but my Kerry Sheffield Photography business page never moved. Like the numbers never went up. So all my Instagram content is directly linked. And I have boosted posts in the past. It's just interesting. It's like I gave up on it because nothing ever actually happened on it. What could I be doing? And other people, is Facebook still a thing in business? That's the question, really.
So I think when looking at all of your channels that you're using, you have to think about who your audience is. is your audience someone that's using Facebook, or are they more leaning towards Instagram or TikTok? So I think really evaluating that. I will say, so the brands that I work with primarily on Facebook have more of a probably like 60-plus-year-old presence, like that's their target audience. I'd say you're doing
Gosh, that's a scary oh my goodness. All the grandmas are out there like, yeah.
Well, I mean, literally, my grandma is 98 years old, and she sits there scrolling Facebook all day. Like, she loves, her and all of her friends love Facebook, but, you know, they're not on Instagram, they're not on TikTok.
I know, I've had friends, I've had like a semi-celebrity friend whose father sent me a friend request the other day. And I was like, I'm not sure if they've been hacked or they don't realize what they just did. I said, I didn't accept it because they don't really want to be friends with me. But it was kind of funny, like, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I think, too, Facebook is one of the more difficult ones to continue to engage that conversation. And I feel like you really have to be like the most genuine, show the most amount of faces of people. Do
you think groups really its strongest backbone?
Yes,
I use Facebook really as a facility to communicate with a body of people I'm working with. So if I'm doing a project, I'll create a group just for that project.
Yes.
And then instead of repeating myself to 40 people, I can talk to them through that.
So right now, Facebook groups is the highest engaged content pillar of Facebook. So I feel like Facebook groups and Facebook Marketplace have been like huge,
which I've really talented.
For Facebook, and really a great way to get engaged. And I feel like that is a way that younger generations are staying involved with Facebook by continuing to like go into these special.
And COVID groups really made that happen, didn't it? Because I started a group just before COVID hit us. I created She All Am Is Me really as a marketing exercise. And I suppose it has worked, but I never marketed in that. Right. I became like, you know, a source of information for everyone.
Exactly.
And a support network. And so inadvertently it got my name out there. So it was a branding marketing exercise, if you like.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way that people can connect with other like-minded people in a way that feels like safe. They can ask any question. They now have an option that you can post anonymously. So if there's something that you want to ask but don't really want your name tied to it, that's really great. So I do think that that is one of the main ways to stay engaged with Facebook is groups. I feel like when it does come to paid, so I feel like I always say, and I know you do a great job at this, but like make sure your organic strategy is great first before launching into putting money behind posts, because think about if that person comes to your page from seeing your ad, does your page have all of the information that that new person would need? So I always say, like, treat your Instagram or Facebook or some of your other social channels almost like a website that has like all of the information that someone new would go to, and they can see, you know, who you are, what makes you better than your competitor. So having that, and then really being able to provide value in your content. So, you know, are you sharing some tips, or are, you know, there's things that you've learned along the way? Something that makes it really easy for me is if I have a conversation with someone in the last week and they ask me a question that to me is very, you know, in my nature, I know the answer right away, but I'm like, okay, one person had this question. I'm sure other people have this question. I'll share a reel about that or a carousel. And I think that's a great way to not be overwhelmed with social, having that type of topic to share. But then when I boost posts for some clients, it really depends on what their goal is. So is it, you know, increased follower growth? So with that, for Instagram, we will do an already high performing post. So we'll wait a couple days and see if that reel goes above the benchmark of their normal posts. I primarily only recommend like boosting reels, carousels if they're like very strong. And with that, having the objective to be driving followers to your page. So that will just drive more traffic to your page to learn more about you, and then they'll go to your site from there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk then fundamentals. Take a business, and it can be a hypothetical business, and tell us. Well, you can tell us all the platforms that you utilize.
Yes.
TikTok terrifies me. And I could just share the content. And I know that Instagram and Reels don't like it if their logos are on each other. So you have to create your own.
Yeah.
It's so funny. This is a generation thing. So funny, not funny story, but just funny realization. My daughter really enjoys making TikToks. And she likes the tools that TikTok supply for her to do it.
Yep.
I prefer making reels, and she can't get her head around making reels, which I find dead easy to do, the editing stuff. Yep. And I do have a few apps I use. God, I can't remember them off the top of my head. If I want to make a longer video and make it pretty.
InShot.
Yeah. Okay, InShot. All right, I'm writing this down. Write these things down, people. InShot. List in your kind of priority what you think are the social media platforms that people should be using, and the most versatile, probably the best use for somebody that's not that good at this as well. So talk through the platforms that you use.
Yeah, so I think if a business, whether it's a new business or someone who's looking to like elevate and refresh their presence on social, I'd first talk to them about like, well, what are your goals? I feel like a lot of businesses are looking to build brand awareness, or they're looking to grow their client roster, or build more of a community and share their services with their right clients. So after finding out their goals, we really talk through their audience. So what's, the generation? Is it male or female? Like, who are you really looking to help? So talking through that, and then really identifying what channel would work best for them. So I always say, and this has kind of shifted in the last couple of years, but you should do one or two channels really well instead of spreading yourself so thin. And I find that a lot of people think they have to be on, Twitter, now X, they have to be on YouTube, they have to be on Pinterest. And then they get so overwhelmed, which I completely understand because you're one person and it's all these platforms. So primarily what I recommend is LinkedIn, which we'll get a little bit more into.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
As well as Instagram. And Facebook is great from an SEO perspective.
Right.
While the engagement is really going to be stronger on your personal page, Facebook's great for SEO, and really you can just like share the content that you're sharing on Instagram onto Facebook. And then TikTok, depending on, I feel like more people tend to stray away from it.
Are we in danger of losing it, do you think, or do you think that's stuff and nonsense?
I think it's a bit of nonsense. I think it's going to be around no matter what capacity it looks like. I think it will, there's different reasons on how the US government owns Meta and how the Chinese government owns TikTok. So there's just different information that's being shared, and they don't like that. So I think I'm interested to see how it plays out, but I do think TikTok will be here to stay. But I do think it shows, it's good to be, I'd say, on at least two platforms. And I think really what's so important, and a lot of people stray away from this, but if you own a business, like, you are the face of the brand. And I find that women, I feel like in their 40s and 50s, they're a little bit intimidated by that, and they don't want to be the face of their brand. And that is really like I think about even when I started Clo, like my first clients were people that I knew that I had worked with in the past, who trusted me for what I had done within social media marketing. And they're not following Clo first, they're following me first.
Yeah.
So they're following my expertise, they know my thought leadership, and then from there they want to work with me and the team. So I feel like really being able to show your face and share your expertise in the work that you do in the community that you're involved with is so important.
And your vulnerabilities too. I think that's been the biggest sales point for me. I mean, I try to be mysterious. It's impossible. And I think my ability to be honest and just to be out there and to show my real self has helped me in my business. That wasn't even my intention. This wasn't an intentional, it's just who I am.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, me appearing online in my raw, true self is not, sometimes I'm like, well, and I've avoided using filters and things. I always wanted to just show up and be me.
Right.
And more for how it made me feel when I see myself not as I actually am. Hey, I can find good light. it's hard for me to see, you know, it's hard for a woman. You're getting older, you're becoming more vulnerable about it. You're putting yourself out there. People are judging. Women are the worst judges of other women. But I just think, do you know what? It is what it is. Just do it anyway. And I think when you're prepared to do that, you actually bring in a more genuine client. You bring in people that stay, and you may not be. Everyone may not be a fan, but the people that stick around, they're the people that matter, and they're the people that are going to do well for you. You don't need to go viral on social media. You just need enough people to make your business work for you.
Well, and I think when people, that's their goal, it's like, oh, I want to go viral. It's like, well, why? Like,
what are you going to get from it?
Yeah, right. And also, too, is your profile prepared?
How are you going to keep that up? I mean, you're only as good as your last video. So you're going to go viral every day? Yeah.
Exactly. But no, you totally hit the nail on the head where when you are authentic, and I think, you know, you can determine how that looks for you. You know, we're not asking you to cry on a video or, you know,
I can though.
Mentally.
No, on purpose. Yeah.
You know, have a mental breakdown, you know. And I think realizing that we're all human, and especially as you're building a business, we all know how challenging it is. You know, so many of us have been there, and I feel like so many people can see through the lies and the fake and, you know, the inauthenticity, and they'd rather work with someone they connect with who's a human. And I always say, like, people follow people, they don't follow, you know, brands. And so it's like, or they don't follow the logo, they follow the person. So it's like really just connect with who you want your ideal audience to be and just speak to them like they're another person.
What are one of the, I mean, and obviously we touched on the different platforms there, and I want you to talk me through a strategy that you would have a small business coming in, but talk about something that you see on a daily basis that really rubs you the wrong way on social media. The mistakes people are making. So not necessarily anyone that you know, but just think, oh, why do they do that?
I feel like pages that are really heavy on graphics, where it looks like it's a flyer, or it looks like it's like
using all of the
they're using every Canva template they can find. And I think a graphic once in a while does tell your story in a great way. But I think it really icks me when people who, you know, own their own business, like they don't show up, and they don't show their face, and they don't show, you know, their why and really sharing their passion. And it's really more of almost all this fluff.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like purposeful or intentional. And then, you know, along with that, people are using graphics, and oftentimes, you know, and something that I always advise people in the simplest way is, you know, pick your brand colors, like what do those look like? And then also when using Instagram stories or reels, pick the same fonts. So pick 2 fonts, whether it's a header and then a body font, and it can be the same, but that's just like a very simple brand.
But that's marketing 101.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing. Social media has bastardized almost the integrity that used to be marketing, because back in the day, you know, we would have a brand campaign, and we would have a brand folder, and we would have the Pantones and the fonts and all of the things. Now there's that's something new and shiny, and it moves. Let's stick it on there. I think that, and I hope you agree, that too many of those widgets that we can use make your post look like spam.
Yes, they do.
And also the filters. People use, and I understand people are like scared to put themselves out there, and you know, hey, I thought the Snapchat, I mean, we haven't even touched on that. I thought the Snapchat filters were hysterical for a bit, and when I traveled across the world, you know, but I only used to use them if I'd had too much wine, and we would just make funny videos. I never used it for my business, but you're not kidding anyone. And I would switch off to someone that's using heavy. I would not taking them seriously.
Yeah, agree. And I think too, if you don't, you know, people when they hear video, they think that it's like a selfie of yourself, like right up front. And that is a great way to share your message. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's other ways that you can film yourself. Like, for example, if you have a tripod, you know, set up, which I'll send you my all-time favorite. It's $30 on Amazon, and it just easily fits into my purse. But, you know, set up a tripod and film something that you do in your day-to-day. And maybe it's like the back of your head. Maybe it's you at an angle. Like, if you don't feel comfortable doing a selfie, that's okay. But there's other ways, instead of doing something that's super heavily graphic, like you said, do a 6-second reel and put a couple sentences on the reel and then type the rest in the caption.
And so I've done videos where it's all about ASMR. So I literally filmed holding the camera in front of me. And I know that these faces videos are a thing now. You can talk about that. Shooting content that's of the perspective of the viewer.
Yes.
And I know that that's really popular on Instagram right now, and people are creating these accounts. But I remember one day just filming myself walking from my car down to the studio, opening the doors, opening the blinds, turning on the light, all of the sound. It did so well. It's ridiculous. I think people are overthinking it.
Right. And that's a lot of it too. And I think a big question I get is, oh, what content type should I use? Should I use reels? Should I use a carousel? Should I do stories? So there's different purposes for each. So a reel will really be what's going to get you the most new eyes on your page. So it's what Instagram has been preferring for a long time, but then they came in saying they also like carousel. So again, always changing. I always tend to gravitate towards reels. And I think, like you said, people overcomplicate it. It can be, and my trick is I always like to hold my camera still and have the movement in the background move. Because I think when people do pans like this, you get a...
As a photographer, I know what works and what doesn't, but I understand that. I mean, I like to move slowly and have movement.
Yes.
And I will hold a video until somebody leaves the frame.
Yes.
People do tend to cut things off in the middle of the action. Let the action play out. You can cut the video afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another trick I like to do is on iPhone, use the 2x zoom. So I find that really showing the details is really nice. And a trick that I'll do is if I do like a larger room or area, then after do like a detail shot of it. So again, another way that you can make a video, but it doesn't have to be your face. And then with carousels, you're really nurturing the relationship with your current followers. So I always like to make sure, so I have a couple formats that I like to use, whether it's like a grouping of photos from an event or sharing a summary of that week or the month, or maybe it is, if I do a graphic, I like to have photos be the main element of it. And I'm sharing information on like how to show up on LinkedIn, best, content prompts you can use that week, things that are helpful that'll encourage people to save it. I feel like that's really one of my goals when posting carousels. And then stories, similar to carousels, you're really nurturing your current followers and you're building trust with them. So people that view your stories are ones who are already following you and they're just seeing more of an inside look in your day-to-day. Although there are some people that focus so heavily on stories, which is great, but make sure you save all your videos and make it into a reel later. Because as you know, stories are up for 24 hours unless they live on your highlight reels, which people don't always click through to. So make it think about, and I always like to think of my Instagram stories in like a full sequence of a story. So it's like save that and post it on your feed. Like if you're going to share it in stories, then why not do it on your feed as well in that like storytelling format?
No, absolutely. So you've got a new client, and I do want you to deep dive into LinkedIn.
Yes.
And maybe we can talk about Pinterest a little bit, because I know that it's an avenue people don't. I use it as a storyboard.
Yes.
And I've started to get better at putting my own imagery on there and creating folders, but I kind of need a week to just like curate the whole thing. Totally. And I do love Pinterest. It's the best waste of time ever. But I've just come in. So I'm a photographer. I'm coming to you, and I've got this podcast. You're going to sit down with me. What is your process with me? How are you going to start? What actionable steps you're going to get me to go away and do? And what is your strategy for me? And okay, so my objective, and maybe with some clients you need to establish an objective.
Yes, that is.
But for me, it is literally bums on seats, people booking me. Right. So what am I going to do? What are you going to do for me?
Right. So usually when I meet with people for the first time, just hearing more about them, hearing more about their journey, where their challenges with social lie. Having my Fortune 100 social media background, I always start everything with a strategy. So
Can you explain what that means?
Yes.
For people that wouldn't know.
I feel like strategy is a very elusive term that people are like, what is that? And I have different formats. So if I'm working with, a Fortune 500 company, a couple of those clients, it looks very different than if it's a small business owner. So I like to have my small business owner strategies be 1 to 3 pages, very to the point, and really a guide. I call it like the North Star of all their social media initiatives. So something they can always reference. So what I include in there, and you can make this on your own, and just sit down and think about, like, what is your goal? So maybe you have 2 or 3, that's okay. And then from your goals, what are those key metrics that you are going to look at for success? Is it, engagement, the amount of people commenting and liking your posts? Is it follower growth? Like, is it video views? Like, what does that look like based on the goals? From there, we think about like, okay, what's the type of content we're going to share? So I always prefer 4 content pillars. So pillars are really categories to really help streamline the type of content that you're sharing. And to start out, I like to have it be equal. So for you, for example, it'll be, your amazing expertise that you have in the field, more about you, like the communities that you foster, really sharing that as the first pillar. The second is your work and your clients. So whether that looks like, a day behind the scenes with your clients, some testimonies that they're sharing, the final product, that would be the second. The third, you could have it be as like a sales, and that too will innately like turn into sales because people are seeing the work product and they relate to it and they want to work with you. The third could be, you really sharing your services. So if I said like, hey, I love who you are, I love your work, like how would we work together? So sharing more about your services, and maybe the fourth pillar is your work within the community. So with, Miles to Go or One Purse, like how do you help your community? Who are some other women business owners that you connect with? So there are your 4 content pillars. And I always like to share like with, a couple words for each pillar, but then what exactly is going under that. And then working with the person on figuring out like what makes sense for you to stay consistent in your day-to-day life. I always recommend if you're managing your own channels, have one day, a couple hours a week that you can sit down and create content. Thankfully now with Meta and with LinkedIn, you can schedule within the platform. It's totally free. And with Instagram, what I like to do for myself is I create a reel, but then I put it in draft. And when I'm ready to post, then I post it.
And timing, that matters.
So
you can look in your insights and see when you've got your audience is most prevalent. Yeah,
exactly. A tip that you could do is looking at your insights and see when the days and the times that they're on. What I see mostly is people are primarily on, Monday through Saturday, like 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
But
and then if it's LinkedIn, it's Monday through Friday. So I'd say I don't recommend posting at, 4 a.m. or midnight, but really the important thing is that your content has value and that people want to see it. Something that I always say is that your content should either inspire someone, it should educate them, as well. And the third one being informing. So thinking about when you're posting, like, does my content do those things?
Yeah.
And then thinking too, like when someone comes to your page, you think about yourself, like why do you follow a new person? And it falls into one of those pillars. So think like with your page, the content that you're sharing, does it have that? So that is the content pillars. I always recommend to like on your notes, whether, you keep notes on notebook or even your iPhone, like if something comes up during the day that you think like, wow, this would make a really good like post, or you're talking to a client, like write it down and then get to it later. And like you said, it doesn't have to be crazy complicated. Just, say what the question was and like what your answer is. So that is like where I initially start out. So then we dive into the platforms. So like I said, I always recommend being really good at 1 to 2 platforms. So typically I'd recommend Instagram and LinkedIn. And I think where a really crucial component is where people I see a lot of people miss the mark on this is you really need to be your own brand ambassador for your business. So like, yes, you have Clo Marketing, but I also have my personal page. And the people who are following me from my personal page, I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, that's like people from high school, or I don't know, like they've been following me forever. It's like, you want to position yourself as an expert in your field, and you need to share the work that you're doing. And I think that people get so obsessed with sharing on their business page, which is great, but also you need to be building your personal branding.
If they follow your business, we want to know who that person is. Especially if someone that it appears to be successful or they appear to be doing it right. You think, well, I wonder what they do in their private life, because maybe I should be doing that too.
And I think too, people, you know, and I think it's just like you said, connecting with people in a way that is who you are. And at the end of the day, this is your social media. People are following you. Like, share what you're passionate about and what you love. Like, and that way you'll never get burnt out of posting, because it's truly like what you love to do and want to share with your followers, because that's what like makes you, you know. And it sounds cheesy, but it's like, just share like who you are. And I think people get scared of that and they like shy away from that, especially when they own a business and they don't want, you know, that murkiness. But that's my number one thing is like, you need to show up on your personal pages and really show that perspective of like your impact of what you're doing from the business. And another key channel that is super underestimated is LinkedIn, where that is where all of the decision makers are located. That is where people who have the money, who have the intention, are on the channel looking for help. So that's really a place that you need to show up. And I think that more than anything, people are super overwhelmed by, because they think they have to be very buttoned up on LinkedIn. It has to be the perfect grammar and the perfect, you know, sentence cadence.
It's like going for an interview.
Yes,
that's how we look at LinkedIn. And I feel a little bit differently about it now. I know that I don't use it enough, but I would like to. So tell me, I have got a pretty decent look in LinkedIn. I try and make all of my social medias uniform.
Right.
In, you know, branding and everything. What can I do to go and jazz up my LinkedIn persona right now?
Yeah, so what you could do is starting, you know, making sure you have a photo that is a headshot style, where you're looking at the camera and smiling. So that really presents you as a friendly person, which it sounds obvious.
I can do your headshot.
Yeah, exactly. And then remembering that the cover photo is really prime real estate. So use your cover photo to share.
Do we have a cover photo on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
we do. Yeah, so it's, you know, see, I'm just going to show. I think maybe I just use the cover always as my logo, but
yes.
Do you think we should do that, or do you think we should do an action photo?
So I would probably do an action photo. Okay. And another way that you can do, if you wanted to do a graphic as well, include your logo, some contact information, and a little, you know, what's a one-liner about who you are. So again, like very prime real estate you could use. I always tell people to have your about section be in the first person, sharing a little bit about you, but don't have it, I joke that it's like a buzzword garden. Like, share a little bit in like a real way on who you are, your experience, and something about you offline.
So not say, I like my frothy lattes and this, that. Yeah, because there was that kind of whole period, especially maybe in the creative industry, where we talked about ourselves like we're a poetic album cover or something. Right. And it just used to drive me nuts.
Yes, totally agree. I feel like it's kind of, if someone were to ask you for a 2 to 3 sentence bio about yourself, your skills, your experiences, but also who you are offline, because again, you know, the theme of all of this is people want to know who you are behind the screen. So do you love to garden? Do you love to read? Like, share a little bit about that on your about as well, because people can really connect with you that way. And then your experience section is really about, you know, a deeper look into your resume. But really what you can do to jazz up your LinkedIn now is to start posting consistently. And what I always recommend, because there's so many things that we can share out there, but whatever you're sharing on your Instagram, you can share on Facebook, but in a little bit, like, just kind of packaging it a little bit different. So on LinkedIn, video isn't quite king on that channel yet. And if it is, make sure you have closed captions, if it's a speaking, if there are words behind it. But I always prefer with LinkedIn to either do no graphic, no photo, no nothing, just text-based, or do a couple photos.
Okay.
So I actually have a resource on my site that is 20 content prompts, and I'll send that to you after.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can add that to the notes, yeah.
Yes, which is super helpful just to go through. But really, like anything you're posting on Instagram, what I always tell my clients and what I do myself is I'll position it in a way on LinkedIn to either just have a couple photos or be no photos or video at all, and then tag the relevant people that you need to tag. I feel like anything you're doing in the community, any tips that you have, like actually one of the posts that had gone viral for myself was I was sharing tips on, I had recently helped like that week a social media manager. I had been helping them and they had landed a job that I helped them get. Right. So I, jazzed up their resume. I helped them with their interviewing skills. And so I was like, okay, that's something that's second nature to me, but feels relevant, that really helped her. So I just, it's best to have a hook. So what are those ways that you could really like stop people from scrolling? So I think, and tying the hook with like kind of your credibility. So it was like, I helped this social media manager, like here are the ways that I helped a social media manager land her dream job.
Right.
And then I just listed like 10 different things that helped out, and it received a lot of great engagement because that's a topic that people are really interested about. But I think, for every one viral post, there's 50 posts that didn't. And I think the LinkedIn algorithm is really interesting and a bit different, where they don't want your posts to go viral, which is quite different than the other channels. But really similar to Instagram and TikTok is they do want you to be authentic, and they do want you to speak to your target audience. So I think of like my industry, and I think, for social media or marketing, I think about if I were having a conversation with someone just getting started, what would I share with them? Or I think about my day-to-day of how did I help a client with a need? Or, my ideal client is corporate brands helping with their LinkedIn. So I really dive into like what learnings I've had or what results that I've seen. So I feel like it doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing. And additionally, really cultivating your community like any other platform, spending time following people you've met, engaging with their content, liking their content. If there's something that resonates with you from, a fellow entrepreneur or a brand, like reshare it and share, why you like it or what about it. Like
the sharing thing is really hard for people. And so I have Sheila and Ms. Me, and on Friday we have sharing is caring.
Yes.
So in my group, I made it so that people couldn't post their business every day. Okay. I didn't want it to be a pyramid selling page.
Yep.
So we don't have religion, we don't have politics, and we don't have daily selling. And that's because I wanted to keep it as a nice space. Authentic. We are authentic in the space, but I believe love is love. I believe you can believe in your own God, and I respect you, and I do educate myself on that. I don't get a vote here, but politics is derisive to everybody, and I just don't want that fight. So I just eliminated it. It's my group. I can do that, right? Definitely. And people have respected it, and all the posts come via me, so I can delete them if they go against it. The sales thing, yes, I didn't want it to just be a daily sell. You can refer people any day of the week in there, and you can look for assistance for any.
If someone's asking.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. But on Friday, sharing is caring. It's pulling teeth, and all you need to do is say, "I use this person. They were great. Here's a link to their social. Or here's a link to their webpage." And maybe post a picture. It takes nanoseconds. And so what I'll tend to do is I'll go through the people that I know, if they have a sale that day or whatever, and I may share 4 or 5 people if I have time that day. But there's 2,500 people in the group, but there's the usual suspects that will partake and will share somebody, and people just write in the comments, and it frustrates me. It's like, just create a post, because if you hashtag it, it will stay. You can always search it. And then on Saturday, I used to call it Small Business Saturday, and now I call it Your Business Saturday, because they're not always small, and I don't want people to think I'm making their business small. But the sharing thing, I think I saw you at an event that Clean Your Dirty Face had.
Yes.
And it's something I've
Oh,
talked
yes.
about when I'm having an anxious day or whatever, or I feel I need to show up. I may just go there for half an hour. I'll film or photograph every supplier that's there.
Yep.
I will get all their details. I'll go home and I'll make a post and I'll tag every single person that featured. That could be 20 people that suddenly see that video, they're in it, they share it. Easiest content ever. And I know a few good people. Alison from X Organic is such a great networker, and she'll tag everybody. And she cares about people, but she's really, marketing herself too and doing a good job at it. And it's so easy to share. When you share someone else, you're actually benefiting your own self.
Right. Well, and you're showing like a piece of your brain and a piece of what you're passionate about as well, which is great. And totally, like you said, I feel like any community that you're involved with, and if there's an event in person, just filming some content in a way that you're able to share, like what was the purpose of the event, what was your involvement in the event, and like thanking all the attendees. I feel like that's such a great way. And really, try to tag as many people as you can. And a lot of the service-based clients that I work with, if they're throwing an event, it's like it wasn't just one person that put this all together. Like tag everyone that was involved. And then from there, so like if that's a Instagram reel, you can also share it on Facebook. But then what I'll do from that is take similar language, put it on LinkedIn, and share a couple pictures. And if people aren't on LinkedIn, then I'll still say their name. But that also really shows your community involvement, which is a huge pillar for me personally too.
Can you talk a little bit about social media etiquette? Because it's, for me, it's a frustrating thing.
Yes.
And if someone paid me, I'm not as fussed about the etiquette, but when it's a collaboration or my media is being used and that person that's using it didn't pay for it, it irks me so much. Why is it so difficult? Explain so it doesn't come from me, so I don't sound like I'm being miserable. What the etiquette is for every creative or every input on social media.
So if you're using anyone's work as and posting it on your own, you really need to ask permission.
And that goes from head to toe. So makeup, hair, outfits, all the things.
Yes. If you're taking their content and putting it on your page, you need to DM and ask them if you can use it. If they don't see your DM, then, you can leave them a comment and say like, hey, I just shot you a DM. Like, so that is that. If you're working together with a group of people to make something bigger happen, including everyone from the production assistant to the makeup team, the hair team, everyone that's involved. And like you said, like when you share and tag those people, it just builds your reputation and there's more eyes on it. Something that we've been testing with one of my clients is she's in the event planning business. And so she plans these incredible events of all sizes. And instead of tagging people, we've been requesting them to collaborate just to see how the performance does on that. And I think too, something that's super simple is if you're at an event and, there's hosts or there's all these different vendors, like just, say, hey, like I'm thinking about doing a collab post, like, would you be interested? And sometimes, I've 90% of the time had people say yes. Sometimes people will be like, yeah, that sounds amazing, but let's make sure we have an approved, like, let's both look at the caption before you're posting it. But I'd say like giving credit to everyone is the etiquette. And I feel like just making sure that everyone involved has a piece of the cake in that post.
And I think a top tip for that really too is when you're sharing, so now I'll share a whole gallery of images.
Yes.
But when I send out the email, I'll put the list of all the suppliers in. I think maybe creating a document when you produce your work to make it easy for people.
Yeah, I was going to say setting the expectation. And if you're doing a really large shoot, saying like, hey, I just, I'm going to be the one to share it first. So I think that's really important too, because oftentimes, even if it's an event that's you've worked hard on, it's kind of behind the scene, you want to make sure if that's a priority to you, that you're sharing that to people. And then sharing the expectation with all the vendors there, like, hey, and I think too, what you could do to make it easy for someone, if there are a lot of vendors, is providing all the handles. Because I think that could be really helpful because not everyone is following each other. And I'd say say too, if, when you meet someone, like follow them on Instagram or whatever social platform, connect with them on LinkedIn so you can stay in touch with them in the future.
I mean, creating a social media guideline when it comes to your brand, I think is probably a good way to go, just so that, okay, this is my expectation, just so you know. There's a lot of passive aggressive behavior online. When people are disgruntled, they'll share it. And I actually think that's a false economy. I think it's better to educate people than to talk about them behind their back when it comes to these things.
And what I always say is disappointment is an unmet expectation. So if you are disappointed in something, think, how can I do something better in the future? And I think just being able to show your collaboration within your industry is so important. And I always, as you as well, like collaboration over competition. And I think that really does pay off in the long run versus, really working in a silo.
Absolutely. You've been so helpful for us in sharing all of your knowledge. I want to talk a little bit about Clo marketing. Before we wrap up, talk to us about how you can help people out there, because we've talked about all the things we can do for ourselves, but let's be realistic. There are many, many people that you can show them the water trough, but you can't make them drink. So, look, I'm a photographer and I do many things. I wear many hats. But we were talking about retouching earlier, and I hate filters and things that, I use very specialist retouchers and I love the work they do. It took me a long time to find them. I can retouch. I can do that. But I know someone that can do it better than me. So I'm paying them to do it. We can all play around on social media and we know who's playing and who's getting it done properly by somebody like yourselves. Sell Clo to us a little bit. I want you to tell people why it's not about how they can't afford to spend money with you. It's about them in their business not spending the money with you. It's the best investment they can make.
Right, definitely. And as you know as well, like if you have a goal you want to reach, hiring an expert to do it is the best way to get there. So I help primarily agencies and brands build their presence on social media. So I have one-on-one. So if you have like one-off questions or you just want to do, you have a brain dump and you have challenges that I can help you really establish a process and make it actionable for you. I do social media trainings for businesses as well, for brands as well as business-minded groups. So really helping them share their story in the best way through actionable trainings that are based on their niche and what they're trying to achieve, as well as LinkedIn training. So really helping people and brands show up on LinkedIn. So I've really primarily been focusing on the training elements. I have a lot of free resources on my website. If you follow Clo Marketing on Instagram and LinkedIn, I provide so many resources on all things social media for elevating your brand. I also have the Clo Digest, which is a monthly email newsletter where I share actionable strategy tips for ways that you can show up and make an impact and really get the visibility you deserve.
And we can subscribe to that on your Instagram, I imagine.
Yes,
and you have a link tree for us to do that.
Yes. So it's clomarketing.com/subscribe, and you're able to
I'm going to go and sign up for that.
Sign up for the Clo Digest, and as well, you can get to that link through my Instagram.
Perfect. And just before we wrap up, tell us your wonderful news that's going to be happening this year. And that's really how... And it's funny, I've seen your name pop up, and you were wonderful when there was a shoot here, and I rented out my space, and you tagged me. So that's really how I identify with you. But tell us your news this year.
Yeah, so I'm getting married in September.
Congratulations.
To my amazing fiance. We've been together about 4 years now. We're getting married in Montana. Gorgeous. So it's such a special place to us. We've been there a handful of times together. He proposed in Glacier National Park. And then we went to Whitefish, Montana to celebrate after. So we are taking all of our friends and family and having a destination wedding in Whitefish, Montana.
Well, congratulations. I'm so excited to see that. I know that I'll get to see it, and I'll get to see it in the perfect way. Thank you so much for today. It's been invaluable, and I hope we get to work together.
Yeah, definitely.
And thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.